Senator Scott previously served as governor of Florida from 2011 to 2019, and I have to tell you, as somebody who calls Florida home, worked tirelessly for his fellow Floridians. During his time as governor, he fulfilled his pledge to Floridians, creating over 1.5 million jobs and dramatically expanding the economy at a rate outpacing that of the U.S. average. He worked to save taxpayer dollars by streamlining the state government, lowering taxes, and, frankly, reducing red tape. Senator Scott, though, I think more than anything is here to continue to show his support for Colombia, but also because he's been closely studying the crisis in Venezuela for years and working to advance policy options that support the Venezuelan people and try to end the humanitarian crisis. As a senator, he has recently introduced legislations in partnership with Florida Congressman Michael Waltz and Senator Marco Rubio that would limit the awarding of government contracts to firms doing business with Maduro's government. He has been working with President Trump and Vice President Pence on the unfolding crisis in Venezuela and is an integral part of the administration's effort in the region. The crisis in Venezuela is not just contained to Venezuela. It's a crisis for neighboring countries like Colombia in the Northern Triangles and, frankly, a crisis in the United States. The flood of refugees fleeing to safety strains our Latin American neighbors and increases security concerns in the region. We must continue to engage in discussions that advance policies supporting the Venezuelan people. Senator Scott is coming here today to offer his thoughts on the crisis and what the United States, our partners in Latin America, and the world might do to improve the situation. Please join me in welcoming the Senator from Florida, Rick Scott.
Well,
good afternoon. First, I want to thank Matt, and I want to thank everybody at Concordia for what they're doing, and all their efforts to make sure that we, as Americans and the world, focuses on Latin America, and we focus on democracy and freedom. It's an honor to be back in Bogota with such an incredible group of leaders from around the world. I was just here a few weeks ago, meeting with President Duque and other officials. We discussed the issue of narco trafficking and our shared goal of freedom and democracy for the people of Venezuela. It's been a distinct honor over the last few years to get to know President Duque. As governor of Florida, I had the honor of attending his inauguration. Anybody that was there knows it was rainy, windy, and chilly. Not exactly Florida weather. President Duque said it was holy water. At the time, my focus as governor was on getting Floridians jobs and increasing trade with Florida. As a United States Senator, I want to help President Duque as Colombia continues to be one of the best United States partners in helping the Venezuelan people and combating the international drug crisis. Since President Duque's inauguration, he has taken strong measures to support freedom and democracy in Latin America, grow jobs for his citizens, and stop drug trafficking. He gave a great talk this morning about what he's working to get done. He has been an incredible ally during the ongoing crisis in Venezuela. Colombia has taken in so many refugees who are fleeing the oppression of the brutal Maduro regime. In less than a year, President Duque has intensified efforts on all fronts to contain the growth of illicit crops and to reduce drug supply and consumption. He has made great progress. Between August 2018 and February 2019, the Colombian government eradicated around 40,000 hectares of illicit crops, an average of nearly 6,000 hectares per month. This represents the highest monthly rate since the beginning of manual eradication. The seizure of marijuana increased from 197 to 250 tons, and the seizure of cocaine from 390 to 450 tons. In addition, from August 2018 to February 2019, the Colombian government seized the equivalent of 227 tons of cocaine hydrochloride. These seizures represent losses for drug trafficking organizations of approximately $6.7 billion US dollars. In December, President Duque presented the Camino al Futuro plan, which, among other goals, commits to reducing the cultivation and production of cocaine by 50% by the year 2023. His efforts mean fewer drugs come across the United States border, and for that, all Americans are grateful. Colombia is the linchpin in our fight against narco traffickers in the entire region. Although President Duque's fight has just begun, I know that Colombia and the United States will continue to work together so we can finally see a lasting reduction in this decades-old problem. I also had the opportunity to travel to Cúcuta recently to visit the Venezuelan border. What I saw there was devastating, absolutely devastating. I left Cúcuta heartbroken, but determined. Venezuelan children walking for hours through dense forest, across rivers, and over terrorist-controlled territory just to get to a school in Colombia for an education and a meal. Mothers with young children coming to Cúcuta get the only meal they'd get to eat for 3 days. I met a pregnant woman who was forced to sleep on the streets because she was homeless. Think about that. I'm a father, I'm a grandfather. Imagine have to tell a 3-year-old child or grandchild and look in their eyes and tell them that they're not going to get to eat that day, or maybe not the next day. The pain, the hunger, the devastation. I cannot believe any human being would do this to young children. This is pure evil. And there's one man responsible for it, Nicolás Maduro. This is obvious to most of us. Maduro is carrying out a genocide on his people. He's starving his own people. Tens of thousands have died. Millions have fled Venezuela, including almost 1.5 million refugees that have come into Colombia. While the evil of Maduro is obvious to most of us, it's not obvious to the leaders of Cuba, Russia, China, Iran, and shockingly, even some politicians in my country who have defended Maduro's regime. There is no moral ambiguity, none, about what's going on. President Xi and President Putin are co-conspirators in the genocide of young children in Venezuela. They're using the suffering of the Venezuelan people as an opportunity to gain an economic and military foothold in the Western Hemisphere. The Castro regime in Havana and the Ayatollah in Tehran are providing support to prolong the suffering of the Venezuelan people. We, the United States, and the community of freedom-loving countries around the world must be clear-eyed about this. If we do nothing, if Maduro stays in power, we will not only allow the murder of young children to continue, but we will also have Assyria on our doorstep. Let me say this loud and clear. Syria in the Western Hemisphere is not acceptable. The safe harbor for enemies in Venezuela represents a clear and present danger to the national security of the citizens of the United States and our allies in South and Central America. Russia, China, Iran, Hezbollah, and others will have a base of operations for military activity in the Western Hemisphere. Already, Russia has started moving military assets into Venezuela, and the Maduro regime gladly accepts the help and support of international terrorist organizations. Furthermore, the presence of our enemies will eventually destabilize every country in the region, creating a flood of migrants throughout Latin America and straight to the southern border of the United States. Over the last few weeks, I've advocated for increasing Americans' military capacity in the region. We should pre-position military assets and consider using the military to deliver aid to the people of Venezuela and to support their fight for freedom and democracy. We need to stop the flow of oil from Venezuela to Cuba by blockading Cuban ports. Juan Guaido is the legitimate president of Venezuela. This is a government in waiting. It is a country rich in natural resources with an economic foundation to thrive under the right leadership. All they need is the constitutional government that they deserve. I speak regularly to President Trump and his advisors about the next steps the United States should take to address the crisis in Venezuela. I'll tell you what I tell them. Don't blink. Don't blink. The uprising a few weeks ago may not have achieved the results we hoped for on our time frame, but that should not deter us. This is our time. We cannot abandon Venezuela or its people. We cannot allow the brutal dictator Nicolás Maduro to carry on his genocide of young children unquestioned and unchallenged. And most importantly, we cannot allow Venezuela to turn into Syria. We cannot allow a clear and present national security threat to fester in our hemisphere. We cannot allow the sacrifices made by the people of Colombia to support their Venezuelan brothers and sisters to go unnoticed. Now is the time to rid the civilized world of Nicolás Maduro and his genocide. Now is the time to make Maduro a pariah, which he is. Now is the time to act. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity here. Don't blink, keep up the fight. Do what we have to do to protect our hemisphere. Thank each of you for what you do. The United States stands with the people of Venezuela in their fight for freedom and democracy, and we stand with the people of Colombia who have shown incredible strength and courage in the face of adversity. Our interests are absolutely aligned. We're in this fight together. We stand united in our common goal: freedom and democracy for the region and security for the hemisphere. Estoy agradecido del presidente Duque y la gente de Colombia en la lucha por libertad y democracia en Venezuela y en América Latina. Maduro sus matones tienen que salir ahora.
Their killers have to
podemos
get out now. We cannot let more kids and more people to die in the hands of a brutal dictator, Maduro. There is no other words to describe what Maduro is doing to their own country with genocide. We cannot permit this situation. We have to fight for freedom of on our hemisphere. We have to keep working with President Duque and the international community to restore the freedom and democracy in all Latin America.